guys so much for coming and partaking in this brave experiment tonight. Yeah, it's not for the weak or lighthearted. We're really gonna go for it. I'll just tell you briefly a little bit about me. I moved to the Fox Valley 14 years ago, and I just love it here. I think it's so beautiful, and I fall more in love with it all the time. I've been quoted as saying, "You can just bury me here." And one of the things that I just can never get enough of is how many cool women I constantly meet here. And so I finally decided to celebrate it and have a retreat that we did. It was just a one night, but we packed in it. The way it was set up was a bunch of workshops that you could pick from, and it was all kinds of stuff, like a beginning Reiki, to see like, what's Reiki about? But then we had like grief. Kim Rich taught a fantastic workshop on grief, sleep, but we also had and Jayme taught acceptance, and we had a dance party, all request dance party, and then a bonfire outside, and we had like a sound bath. It was great. It was like 30 some of us that did that, and
How many people that are here now were in that?
Yeah, how many you guys? Oh, cool, yeah. That's my God. So, what I ended up having was like almost more people wanting to teach at it than who even came to it. And there were so many fascinating topics that we do all want to learn about. So I just kept rolling with it and I kept doing a workshop like 2 a month about, and we're tackling like the tough subjects. Divorce, we did aging parents, which you'd be surprised, like we actually even have fun. We were laughing at the aging parents, talking about water cremation and trying to figure out how to ask our parents if they wanted water cremation. It's a thing, it's a real thing. But then we actually do fun stuff, like we had a belly dancing class, and but then I got to thinking, well, what about men? Like they're missing out on this. Like women are so good at getting together and just like getting real, and we just kind of know what to do. But then I'm like, oh, men are missing out. And a lot of the topics were pertinent to men. Like we have one coming up that's how to talk to your teenagers about sex and pornography. Like I said, we're not afraid of the tough topics, and that's something that men should come to, dads should come to, and they need tools for. And so I started thinking, well, they deserve opportunities to be in places where we can be open and talk, and they can know that they're not alone. The way that like being around a group of women, like you instantly are like, oh yeah, you just get that feeling like she's got it too. It's not just me, and it just clicks into this kind of magic, and I think men deserve it too. So the women group is called Femme Affinity. It's not just, not dissipating it, but Healing Buffet will be for everybody and anybody. This is the first official event, but it's about, discovering all these different modalities and like topics and hot topics, like rage release is a big one. So like I'm running with this whole anger rage thing. The whole month of May is all like we're doing all this stuff because it's such a big topic, and it's so tricky. So the Healing Buffet the goal is to discover, share, and discuss ways to heal ourselves and our communities and have fun doing it. So whether it's figuring out what acronyms stand for, like we still need to learn EMDR, what that is, or an event like this, it's a buffet of options. That's why it's called Healing Buffet. And you can just try what you like. So we'll continue, and I'll do these awkward little videos of me talking to, you would believe how many practitioners and smart and amazing people are in the Fox Valley, and I'm sure beyond, because we had to import Jasmine from Bloomingdale to be here, and so I'll just take my phone and record, like astral travel, like, sky's the limit. Like, you know, I want to meet past life regression. I'm up for anything. So you can, and you know, it's buffet. You get to choose what you want to learn about. But tonight's experiment is we're going to take this community space that belongs to us, and we're going to open it for ripe new insights into like what sort of beast is anger anyway, and how can we be safe sticking to our values. And maybe we could hopefully leave here with some tools that we can use and then keep our community woven together. So let's give our judgments the night off and exercise our listening muscle, which even though that sounds so passive, I think we might be discovering that it's harder than it sounds. So the procedure is I'm going to ask questions to the panelists, and if one of you guys wants to answer someone else's question, just raise your hand, and or if you want to chime in on something, it's no hard and fast rules on that. But if you're getting kind of wordy, then I'll just be like, and then you gotta kind of wrap it up. So, but before we ask you guys questions, I want to ask you guys a couple questions. How many of us have dealt with an angry person recently? Or they've been in our vicinity, okay, and who has found their own anger triggered recently? Okay, and how many of us, okay, this is what I've been thinking lately, going back, like if you think, I don't know if you learned it from your family or you learned it from society, and probably both, but how many have any or all of these beliefs? Anger is unhealthy, unproductive, toxic, it can backfire on you, only bad people are angry. Anybody have any of these that they've kind of, that you believe to be true? So maybe some of you like me are finding yourself without a playbook for this unwieldy emotion. So I'm not promising we're gonna resolve all our anger tonight. That it's way too tricky. But I will say you have a right to be angry, and you had a right to be angry about old stuff. I'm just gonna say, like, whatever it was, I think you probably had a right to be angry, and maybe you didn't let yourself feel it. So it's something to continue to work on, but we're gonna talk about it, and May is anger month, so whatever we don't cover here, we can spill over. So I want to introduce these people, these lovely people who came tonight. I'll start with my licensed therapist who are going to help us with anger. Jasmine, Jasmine Menser-Lust, she has a safe space for delving into this stuff, and it's called Catalyst Counseling. She's from Bloomingdale, and she's devoted herself to helping people be the better version of themselves and supporting marginalized communities break free from stuck patterns to create lasting change. And then Jayme Kruse is from Torus Integrative Healing in Batavia. She's got an insatiable curiosity and a desire to help people be more themselves, free from old big T, little t trauma, and live in the present moment. And Torus is unique because it has therapists, not just with different specialties, like I think you said you have 2 that work with teens, but the perspective of Torus is that it's like a 360-degree. It approaches body, mind, spirit, and you as a whole being. And her space is gorgeous. It's when you walk in, you can feel like the hug of it. It's the backside of Water Street Studios in Batavia. Okay, question for you guys again. Who considers yourself a good listener? I don't know, that's probably why you're here tonight. Who used to consider themselves a good listener, and lately you're like, I don't know, it's harder than I thought it would be. Yeah. So we have 2 expert listeners here tonight. Jayme Muenz is a St. Charles alderperson from the 2nd Ward, and I just can't believe this. She was not up for re-election in this last election in April, so she volunteered to knock on doors. Like she went with Kim, who's on the school board now, to knock on strangers' doors, and because she's not daunted by who might be on the other side of the door in the conversation that could ensue. And I just think that is so brave.
There was only one angry person too.
That day.
So yeah, there's only one.
And he really had an impact on you, though.
They, them.
They, them.
We don't want to name any names, right? Yeah.
Anonymous. And Jayme is also an HR professional, so she encounters challenging conversations and has to navigate emotionally charged topics with people from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. She gets a lot of practice mediating, information sharing, problem solving, and respecting a diversity of viewpoints. Lawrence, my better half down there, he consistently reminds me that it's not our place to judge other people, and I can vouch that he is a very good listener. And I do talk a lot, so I put him to the top. He's owner of Preservation, and he can't even hear what I'm saying.
No, there's an insert joke right there.
He's the owner of Preservation and Atlas Chicken, has spent his life since age 14 in restaurants, customer facing, and his genuine respect and curiosity about people helps him keep a wide bandwidth, so that even when someone with years of built up resentment gets cold soup, he can handle that. He always gives people the benefit of the doubt, and his public spaces, the public spaces he creates, reflect his tone of acceptance and I would say celebration of each other. So that's why this is this diverse group of panelists here. So I'm just gonna dive right in, and we're just gonna go straight for it. And for the two therapists, I'm curious what the difference is when we say like, well, what is anger? Where does it come from? I don't know if one of you wants to go first, but I would bet that you have different answers. Do you want to tackle it? It's like a definition and like
Yes.
the
So
root of it.
anger is a definition for it, or my definition of it would be it is an emotion, like all other emotions that need to be honored and shared, but it's also an energy. Anger is something that we can sometimes feel and we can't pinpoint, and it can build from different places based off of whatever's being triggered in that moment. So it's a strong, powerful emotion that is labeled inherently negative because it brings upon what feels like negative energy, but it's an intense energy of usually associated with some level of wrongdoing.
That seems very official.
No official stamp.
Yeah. No, we need a working definition though, because it's so unwieldy. Jayme, what would you say?
Yeah, I would ditto that, and I would say that it's an emotion that we need to feel, and we need to allow to feel it because it's generally there to show us that something is being done to us or we're experiencing something that's unjust. And so to listen to that and to be able to hear what that injustice is and to be able to communicate that in a way that doesn't come out as so negative. But it's an emotion that we need to feel and we need to experience to move things, to create action. Yeah.
That's what I was afraid of. Like, we can't. There's no shortcut around it, or like, yeah, that's the tricky part. So then it comes to you two that maybe are out so much in the public that you're encountering this more than the average person. So, Jayme, Muenz, how would you say you keep a healthy emotional distance from people who confront you with anger or animosity, and then how do you move forward from there?
I think that most of the time when people are coming at you with anger or animosity, it's first of all coming from them. It's not about you. Very rarely, even when people are coming at you personally, it's not about you. It's about something that's inside of them. So figuring out where do you have a common value, where do you have something that you can agree on. It really depends on what the issue is, and why they're coming at me for something. But what is the thing that you can diffuse that with by agreeing on something? Whether it is, isn't it a nice day out, or I really like your shoes. It's something that gets you to a place where they have like come down from what they're mad about. But also understanding I don't have to take on that anger and I don't have to own it for them. I can find out what the value is they're trying to get to, and do I ascribe to it? Do I agree with what they're trying to solve? Where's the problem? And is it something I can work through with them without taking on all the anger that they're throwing at me too?
So do you have any ways that you, would you say you're good at like separating their emotion from like intermingling with you?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes not.
Yeah, you don't have any like tricks for us about that?
I really do say you have to stop and take breath, and you have to figure out who is that person to you, and why does it matter what they're angry about? Are they really angry with you? Are they angry with a situation? Is it something that either one of you can control? Stopping and really thinking about what's happening around you, because are you holding on to an idea and they're angry because their idea is something they're taking ownership of? Or are there places where you guys can both set that aside and maybe, as I said before, figure out a value that you can agree on, that you can work from there on, instead of focusing on the problem or the item or the idea that you're working towards. I find that when you argue about a topic, that's where people get really hot. They go automatically to the thing they want to argue with you about, or they want to be mad at you about, instead of where do we have something we agree on, and let's talk from there and figure out where we can get into a better place.
And then can you circle back into the hot topic?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes not. It
Yeah.
depends on how hot that topic is. You know, I deal a lot in the political realm, and that is a really scary place sometimes. And people have very passionate opinions. And, you know, Kim and I found that at knocking on doors, there are some people that they want to dive right into those hot questions. And sometimes those questions aren't helpful. That's not really what they need to know in that moment. They need to know more specific, helpful information, and you try and steer them to that, and sometimes they don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid those questions from them, but it really depends on the person. And I think just knowing that you have to be okay walking away, and you have to be okay saying, I'm not taking on this conversation, and I'm not going to take on that. I'm not going to be blamed for when you're angry.
Isn't that amazing? I can't believe I never thought of it, but this just can't believe it. You can walk away.
Yeah,
It's
an option.
It's an option.
Yeah.
You don't feel like it is in the moment for some reason.
They say, you know, no is a full sentence. So, like, walking away is an option. Like, you know, it's so nice to meet you. I'm gonna go now. That's an option.
It's such a lovely option. Lawrence, do you want to tackle? So the question to her was, how do you keep a healthy emotional distance from people who confront you with anger or animosity, and then how do you move forward from there?
I might be able to offer another perspective to it. All very consistent with what they're saying. I think not being afraid of it, putting a little ding in your armor, right? Like if you have to face it, it may hurt for a minute, and you may just have to be like, you know what, I can do that. And I can hold on to that space for X amount of time. I'll let it be as important as it should be, and try to keep it in perspective. And you know, one of the main reasons Tess, you know, mentioned, and I said, okay, I'll do this. You know, like we know as a customer service oriented person, you're going to run into it every now and then. So you kind of keep it in context of like how important is this really? You know, but it is important in that moment. You may have to, and in HR, as a business owner, it's important in that moment. Like there's things that have to be like, and you have to like kind of like just hold that space. And even though you know, like it's gonna take a little shot at you, and you're probably gonna have to, is probably gonna be inside you for maybe a day, maybe 2 days, who knows? But it's temporary. There's no shortcutting around it. So whether that's something that I would recommend to everybody, I think it's a truth. Like when faced with something that you have to confront that will involve anger, or is already at a point of anger, but you kind of are forced to confront it. So cold soup, you use the analogy. We're forced to confront it. Somebody is really pissed. We lost their reservation. So you're like, okay, and you have to go and step forward. And we know, and we're all going to talk about the tool of listening. That's the core of what you can do in that situation. You just want to say, tell me what happened. Let's figure out where we're at right now. And so you're just kind of like, okay, I understand that this is happening. I understand we made the mistake, if it's on us, which most of the time probably is. Like we made a mistake, and you probably are overreacting because I'm gonna fix it. And you're just kind of like telling people like, we're gonna get there, we're gonna fix this. Like you stick with me and stay, kind of like in the present, in this moment, and not with everything you brought with you, and we'll find a way through this. But it is gonna stick with you. That amount of energy is gonna be on you for the rest of, like say if we really, I think most of us, even though maybe not all of us have worked in the public spectrum, can understand, like you confront that situation, it's gonna be with you for the next couple hours. This is all there is to it. And being okay with that, and being like, I can deal with that.
Well, to our therapist, like if we really get to ask the question, so what seems so, I guess it does get like this toxic reputation, but when someone gets angry and something shakes loose in me that, and this is what's happened to me lately, that it's old stuff, but it like found its way up, like something, like somebody's anger pulled the old anger out of me, and now we're in a shit show. Like now things are like getting ugly. Like what is that chemical brain thing? And like that's what seems like so scary. So if we're gonna, what do you, Jasmine, you wanna try to tackle that?
Well, when you said the brain thing, my person's like, yeah, your amygdala said, the house is on fire, get out, get out, get out. Like that whole fight, flight, freeze kicks in, because whatever came up that was sudden and unexpected and like shakes your whole being, you're just trying to survive now. Your brain doesn't care anything about anything else that's happening in survival. So if that alarm is going off, then absolutely. I personally, because we're professional counseling, I like when the stuff comes up because it's like, oh, we got it now. It's like, we got it. I'm not in the world of all the analogies. One of the ones was like, we're going fishing, and some of my clients say, well, that's a dead fish. I don't want to touch that. It stinks. It's old. I was like, it's in you rotting. If it came out, let's keep pulling it out. So when you were doing that move, I'm like, it felt like the fish you were describing how, it was like, it's swimming out the, then it comes out of there. But it's rotting, right? It wants your attention. It's old, and it's like having all this impact that you didn't even know. It's like walking in your house, and it's like something stinks, and I can't find what it is. And then you finally find it. You have to take care of it, right? So that's your body begging for, like, please take care of this. But the amygdala doesn't feel safe enough to really process new information yet, because it's just focused on safety and grounding. So like Jayme mentioned with breath, like breathe, as simple as a tool. I thought we can all set it in one way or another. Like breathing is a big tool. You just breathe. Your brain is like, oh, I'm safe enough to even focus on it that I'm breathing. It calms that alarm down. It's like, okay, so now I can figure out the next step.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's great. I think that a lot of times when we're in the moment, we don't even realize that something is getting kicked up in us, right? It just, that anger, we feel that anger, we go into fight or flight, and we don't even realize like what's happening, because that, like you said, that response system kicks on, and at that point my low brain is the only part that's working, what I like to call reptilian brain. And there's no processing at that point. That is pure survival. Just like if you think about cavemen, like they didn't have time to think about, oh wait, should I not step here, or is that saber-tooth tiger coming at me right now? Should I go left or should I go right? They would have been dead. And so we can't think and process because our right brain is not, you know, in control there. So a lot of times the awareness just isn't there. It isn't there. So like what you're saying, Tess, it's like someone may be coming at me and saying something, and I may be getting really triggered being my fight or flight system is being kicked on, and I don't know what. And so, Lawrence, you talked about presence and being really present when we're speaking with people. I think that's the one tool that we all need to embrace and have when we're speaking in front of people or having these conversations, is making sure that I'm super present with what's happening within me and recognize that I need to breathe. I just need to breathe. Like back to Jasmine's comment about the breath, because it's so important. Because if I'm starting to get, and I then start reacting, well then what happens? Now we're both in this conversation and we're just going head to head and nothing is making sense, because now both of our fight or flight systems are activated and we're just talking to talk, we're talking to be heard, we're not being able to ask those curiosity questions and lean into empathy and be curious about what the other person's point of view is, because I'm just gone. So when I come home and then I can reflect and I can become aware of what just happened. My fight or flight system is not on anymore, and then I can figure out what was that trigger? What did that trigger inside of me? What was just being said to me that I felt this immense like anger for? What was this injustice that I'm feeling? Where did that come from? And then all of those self-awareness questions, if you can answer, can be done in a private space, but you're not going to be able to do that face to face right then and there. We just have to be mindful of what is happening right here and just take a breath. And like Jayme said, the biggest rule of thumb is to not take whatever is coming at you personally, because it's not anything ever about you. Ever. If we're triggered, it's not the other person. It is something that is very deep inside of me that is triggering some kind of belief in me that is telling me that I need to be angry. And that's the thing to work on.
I see your face.
I feel like this is gonna be so hard to do in a moment when someone's coming at me being angry and I'm just in like, and yet there's like some dead fish coming out of me. And I'm like, how do I do all these things at once in this heated moment?
You don't do anything all at once.
No.
Your job is to breathe. Your job is to remain centered in your body. Because when you're going through all of that, again, our biggest instinct is to fight or to flee. And so that's what you want to do. That's what our bodies want to do. But if we're staying centered and grounded and we're just coming back to the breath, okay, don't take this personally. This is about me. This is about me. This is about me. This isn't about me.
Okay.
And so it's self-soothing in the moment as well.
And then later I can look at like,
Later.
that was a dead fish also of mine. But in that moment, I can't process all that stuff.
And you don't want to throw your dead fish at another person, because
Right?
they're going to get defensive and they don't want to stink.
Yeah.
So they're
yeah.
fighting back against like the thing.
Well, I have a challenge, like just a tiny one, because I'm hearing everything you're saying, right? But the thing that just stuck in my brain was when someone's angry, it's never about you. And I went kind of the reverse, and I was like, no. In like the past 3 months, I've been really angry at people, and it was about them. It really was. And so I think sometimes there are injustices that are happening right now.
Yes.
And it's because of decisions that people are making, and I am angry or I am hurt that people I care about are not being cared for. And it does feel like it's about them, that it is not about me. But I just want you to speak to that. Is it really about me? Or like what do you do in that situation when you really deeply do feel like it is about, it's not about any of you, but you know, like, well, what do you do with that?
Is it called righteous anger? Is that,
Can I ask, you're talking about like conversations you're having with people who maybe believe something different than what you believe should be
No,
happening?
I'm talking about public figures or, you know, people I
Right.
see on TV.
Okay, so these are
or,
people you're personally interacting
Correct.
with. So what you're talking about, in my opinion, you're talking about values. Your values do not match their values, and they are making decisions based on those values that do not match yours. And so that's where you're having a misalignment, and I think that's where the anger is coming from. So that anger is about her, but it isn't. You're not angry with them. You're angry that the value systems are not matching. Maybe I'll let the
I can
professionals
accept
answer
that.
that. But I
Yeah.
think if you dig down deep and you look at it, it comes down to the fact that you are coming at everything from different value systems. That the values that are driving their decisions are not the same as yours. And it is gonna change how the outcome of all those decisions. And so you're gonna have a hard time, especially because you're not interacting with that person. But if you're having a conversation with, if I don't have those same values that you have, and you and I are talking about something, it's gonna get really difficult really fast when we're talking about a heated issue, because we're gonna have a hard time getting to that same place.
And I usually stay pretty calm, but then I go home and yell at him about it. So
I do that too. You can ask my husband.
Yeah.
That was a really good question, and that was an excellent answer.
It was.
Honestly, it really was.
But I bet that if you were dealing with an actual person, as opposed to dealing with these larger, like, more macro
Ideas
systemic
values.
issues, and I can imagine what you're talking about. If you're talking about an actual person, there's a place that you do align with that person that you could find. Like, you both have kids, you both care about, like, nobody wants to, I don't know, drown puppies, or, you know, like, there's somewhere that you guys agree. There's a place that you can get to. You know, everybody likes ice cream, or like, I don't know, there's something that you can get to where you're like, yeah, we agree on that. And then there's a place that you go from there. There's gonna be a spot where you diverge again, but you can get past that anger, because you don't have to be focused on that one thing when you're dealing with that person. I don't have an answer for how you deal with that big anger on that big thing that you don't have that ability to touch or affect change on immediately, because I can't do that either. So
We have 2 questions. She had her hand raised first, Becky.
Well,
and then we'll get to
I would like to say that Mrs. Lynch, I will also like to be throwing fish at some people. Mine are not people as much, I would like to throw them in for people on TV as well.
yeah.
But there are people in our lives that I feel afraid that it is no longer, well, yes, we both love ice cream. Now it's getting so much more that I don't know how to not throw a fish at them, and I want to, and I love that analogy, and I'm going to be thinking that next night. I'm thinking
Yeah, I
something
think you've started something.
Where is that fish? 'Cause I just want to chuck it at you.
and is anger okay? Like can it propel and drive us in good ways? And then, so if we talk about, because it's all these things, like it's our anger, it's their anger, it's the anger that's born when we clash. But like, can we use our anger in a
We're here today.
productive way?
They brought us here.
Yeah, that's true.
I wanna add another piece to this, another layer, a deeper layer. So I work every day with a lot of different people, and most of the people that come into my practice, and all of us here, believe it or not, but we all have endured some kind of trauma. And it's a big trauma or a little trauma. Traumas that, a big trauma would be like a fire, or a sexual assault, or a robbery, or home invasion, something like that. A smaller trauma are traumas that happen at a very small layer, where we don't even recognize that we're being traumatized. But in these small moments of indiscretions that happen to us, we form these belief systems about ourselves that come out of fear and that come out of a lack of safety. And so this is the systems that we're built on as human beings. And so that's what makes all of us very, very, very different. That's what gives us all different life experiences. That's what shapes our values, and how we're aligned and who we're aligned with, and what people who are in our lives with, and who we congregate with. And so we make decisions based on those sets of beliefs that we have. And so if we're all very different with our own very separate sets of beliefs, and we get those sets of beliefs because of things that have happened to us, we're all making decisions based on, sometimes, on those traumas and based out of safety. Like I'm gonna fight for this cause because I'm fighting for something very near and dear for me. So that's why I'm saying we can't take things personally, because we all have these different beliefs and different opinions based on what's happened to us. And so if we can remember that everybody's hurt, that we're all hurt, that we all have these behaviors that we are acting off of because of things that have happened to us, that we can maybe take a step back a little bit and remain curious about what that perspective is that person has, and get curious and start asking questions, and then we can really embrace that skill of not taking things personally. And when we do feel these injustices on a more macro level, that also we can remember that all of those people at the top also are traumatized and making these decisions based off of that, based off their own, experiences. But we can feel angry because there's injustice happening more out in the world and it's affecting the community. And that is where I like to tell my clients that it's a time for us to create action, which is what we're doing in this room right now. And that action creates an energy, it creates a movement to move through that anger. And that, if we all can get to that point and make that action happen and fight for the causes that we believe in, because we know that it's hurting people, then we have more energy coming towards that, right? So that's what I have to say about that.
Diane, you had?
Well, actually, you just spoke to, but much more eloquently than I could ever say this. But my question was going to be, when is anger right? Because it seems like you're saying ways to deal with it, to move away from it, to take breaths, to do this and that. But when it is personal, when you're personally being impacted by systems or people that are unjust, and I just believe that at this time anger is a good thing to also, because there has to be a boundary, right? And and I mean there a lot of us are women in here, not that you men have never used shoes, but I mean, women's rights, and just being treated differently because you're a woman, not being respected, and then to constant, I'm 71 years old, I'm so sick of fighting that, and that is a trigger, as you were saying, there's such a trigger, but at what point can you just say, no? Because I kind of feel like we need that anger in order to make change.
Absolutely. That's what I first started with, right?
Yeah,
Anger
you said it so much better than I did.
anger is there because it's injustice. And as we're faced in today and what's happening, there are many, many injustices that are happening. Many, many, many. And we want to fight for our people. We want to fight for ourselves. And we can do that in a way that also, though, doesn't involve negativity. We can transmute that anger into that action, into love, into compassion, into the fight of doing something because we have love for one another. So we don't have to fight anger with anger necessarily.
I need some work.
Yeah. Sometimes anger just comes from feeling helpless, right?
Yeah.
So, no matter what you do, it doesn't
deal with on a daily basis and we trigger each other. I have no way not to talk to this person because they're my mother. And so, but every phone call I hang up and I take it out. And her advice is, you need to move. You've got to move. You've got to move your body. You've got to sweat. You've got to get that out in that way. Like you run, take a run, go exercise, do some yoga, like do something. But you've got to release it, or it does stay in your system like a fish.
Yeah.
It doesn't. So that has helped me a little bit too. When I'm pissed off, I take a run or I go do some yoga or something, and it does help. And
I agree, there's like a physical, like,
yes,
there's
like you have to
something
fight
about
it out, like
moving
almost.
it, like shaking it loose and moving it. So it's dicey because we keep going from our anger and old anger that, I don't know, if anyone besides me and Christine is like now, all these old dead fish are coming up, and how we get rid of them, or what do we do with them, and then does that make us less likely then to be triggered by other people so that we can stay calmer and stay more centered? Are there any other, that was a good trip, that really does help, like physically, like move it. Is there anything else that we can do with our own, either whether it's old or present anger, to like process, move with like something, hurt something? Are we supposed to purge it? What are we supposed to do with it, and how do we do that?
I want to offer an interesting thought experiment as we talk about anger, because there's so many beautiful concepts, but I feel like anger is still being held as this enemy, right? So what if right now we all put anger and happiness on the same level and just think, how do you want happiness to move through your body? When happiness comes up for you, what do you do with it? Do you move because it feels good? Do you sing? Do you have happy tears? Like, I'm a happy crier also. What do you do when happiness comes up? The same way that you respect and honor happiness, put that with your anger. Anger was labeled as evil because it feels intense and negative. No one said it was actually bad, right? If it's just another emotion that comes up and needs to be honored, can we give it the same respect that we do happiness? And whatever you do, that's your answer, that's your guide. However you express your happiness. If you go paint, if you run, because not everyone's runners, but I just got into it and it's beautiful. But you have to find your thing. So think of whatever makes you happy and try to, when anger comes up, even if it's in that moment, like breathe first, as we're all saying. And then when you're at home, it's like, oh, this feels, so what would I do if I was happy right now? And then still don't dismiss anger. That's gonna be the hardest part, because then we're like, ooh, happiness trigger, let's just water happiness. Don't dismiss the anger. Like, still hold the anger there and do the same thing.
If I can add to that, I love what she said, because it's similar. So I was looking for a quote. I love quotes, but I have a terrible memory, so I can't remember what they are. But there is a quote that I'll find later. I couldn't figure it out. It's essentially that no change, or no real change, or no good change comes from happiness or from stagnation. It's born out of struggle and displeasure and strife and difficult times. So I think that in the example that Kim gave, and this is where I channel it. If you feel things aren't going well, what can you do to make it better? And will that help you? And if that's your thing, like you said, if that's the thing that gives your anger a purpose, volunteer somewhere, or figure out what you're gonna do, run for school board. Find a thing that is going to make a change. And you're not going to necessarily go and make the change for the thing that's making you yell at the TV, because that's a big thing. But you're gonna affect some change somewhere, and every single small change makes a big difference. So knowing that you're doing something towards that as opposed to nothing, it's somewhere for you to channel that anger. So.
Yeah, I may quote a garage band that I just heard in a dive bar in Lansing, Michigan. The lead singer said, just pick your thing. Like, you can't, there's so many things right now that we can't, like, we're gonna overwhelm ourselves. But he's like, what's your thing? And you'll know it because it feels good, it motivates you, you wanna do it. It gets you going. Pick that and just go, go, go. Like, don't stop. And then he just like rocked it out. So, so that I think like getting overwhelmed by so many things, but we're one person. We're here to do like what we're here for, and to find that and that channel feels so good. So yeah, I'll watch for that. And so now, so these two somehow do dovetail into each other in a really tricky way, the listening component. So I know Lawrence and I've been talking a lot about that. How do you feel like listening is a power? Like, how do you utilize that? Because you are a very, very good listener.
I'm still listening. And, I think we probably all have at least a base knowledge of the diffusing quality of listening, right? So like, as soon as we've talked about the back and forth of an idea and how like it I don't know if anybody's ever really gotten through one of those and been like, well, that worked. But I think we've all tried, you know, and I think the ability to listen, and we've talked a little bit about, and we all know we want to do this, is like see the other side, understand that the other side's coming with a value system that may not be yours because of the things that happen to them, because of the life that they've lived. These are human qualities. They're not your qualities. They're not her qualities. They're human things that we all go through, right? Like we all have some path that got us to this point in our lives. And it builds inside of you, right? It builds the character that you are. This is kind of a repeat of some of the things that were said. But being able to say like, okay, well, why don't you show me what it is that brought you to this spot? And just being curious a little bit. Like listening is about curiosity, right? So you're curious, like, what am I curious about? I'm like, I just want to find out why you're so mad. You know, like I'm genuinely curious about it. Without maybe a huge goal. And you know, I know we all know. Well, I wanna like maybe back up a little bit. Maybe this is consistent with it, but I'm always very wary of the word they, because I think it's used to like divide us. So like whenever I find us in the word they, I put up a little red flag of like, I think we've used, and I think humans will continue to use they. Like we're going to do it. Like that's just part of our, that's part of our DNA. We're wildly different across this whole globe, and they are always going to exist. But it's a tricky one. So I'm always put up a little red flag when it gets to they. And this is something that like taking Tessa's lead with like, you know, figure out what it is that feels good to you and just go do it. I think that's been the lifelong journey of hospitality for me, and it just continues to be brought into focus. Is like that's not what hospitality does. You know, we try to create a space that's for all. You know, like and that feels very important to me. Like that's not something that I'm willing to. That's a value that I built through my experiences that feels very important to me. As it would, you know, for anybody else that's bringing their experience, they're going to feel very invested in their experience and that value that they bring.
Yeah.
So just being curious, maybe curious.
That's a whole other thing, because you almost can't fake listening either, because then like so much is red on our face. Like when you're listening, but you're just waiting for your turn to talk.
Yeah.
People see that on your face.
Yeah, they sure do.
Yeah.
We happen to have, or I happen to have, and Tess does by connection to me, but I think we may have the world's best listener in my family.
Oh yeah, Uncle Ray.
Yeah.
He is.
He is wildly good at it.
Yeah.
just wildly good at it. And it's really inspiring to watch him do it.
And he makes you feel heard and listened to and important.
Yeah.
And you could be telling him that, like, Luca brings out his fountain pens.
Yeah, my son's really into fountain pens. Rick knows nothing about it, but he'll listen.
Oh yeah,
And he'll listen with
he's
intent.
genuinely curious and
Yeah,
wants
he's
to-
really present.
Yes.
Yeah, he's really present.
And it shifts something inside you. It makes you feel like validated, and so listening does seem to have like a tremendous power. And of course, at the same time, it's harder to do than you think, especially when someone's coming at you. Because I'm sure some of you guys have had this with like stuff that is like nonsense. Like it's not true. It's like, and you have to listen to it. And what are you supposed to do? How do you keep your face from being like,
One of those actions that I'm taking recently, being very invested in the community, because you learn a lot when you really deep in there and going on in the community. So many things are happening, and those are the actions that I can take because I'm in control of that. So I was at an emotional intelligence workshop in COD, and the lady, she's so phenomenal. She explained some like anger and emotions and all this stuff. It was great. And I've been practicing this with my daughter, who's 7, and then she talked fast. And I'm like, girl, slow down. But she said, I remember the lady said, be curious, not judgmental.
okay,
First thing. The second thing is, if you really want to be present and be still and just kind of get invested, not waiting for like, turn, say, tell me more. And then I'm like, oh, that's awkward. So we sat there, sort of, we did a group breakout, and we sat there, we could tell me more. Tell me more. It went on and on and on, kind of until you get comfortable with just listening. So I've been doing that with my daughter, but then she'll go on and on. And the story time, it travels on off topic, but it helped me just being there for them. So a lot of telling what is going on in my house. So yeah.
and even though that's like the last thing you want to do is hear more.
I don't want to hear the story about the pre-K, but okay, there we are. Tell me more. So it's helpful.
Any more thoughts on listening and how to be better? Because I think we touched on when you're in a conflict with somebody, if you're bringing your stuff and they're bringing their stuff, it just stays like this. So is listening really like what shifts that dynamic? And if so, how so? Anybody want to pipe in on like how this works?
I want to add something too, is being mindful of not making assumptions. Because when we're in communication with others, we want to think we know. We want to think we know what's either going to come out of their mouths. We want to think we know where they're coming from. We want to think we know what they mean. We want to think we know, and we take on those assumptions. And then what happens when we assume? And so being really mindful of that as well is another really great tool to have. Because that goes along with then tell me more. Because we're not making those assumptions, and we're not making those, we're not creating a story that's not here. We're going with what's here, we're coming back to present. So that's another really great tool to have. Don't make assumptions. Ask questions. Don't make assumptions. And asking those questions gets deeper into then the person and takes it off of maybe the subject of what we're arguing about, because it's really, I'll say this, but I think that life is just an illusion. And all of these things just kind of happen to bring out other things. And let's just get past the book. Let's just get past this thing that's right here in the middle of us. I want to know what's beyond this. I want to know why you think the way that you think. But you can't ask why, because they're going to be like, I don't know, or they're going to fight back. What makes you think this way? What makes you believe that way? What happened to you? Or what happened to this? Or just really getting good at asking those kinds of questions and trying to be empathetic.
else have tips about, like listening and having it be effective for, like, do we really have to take our objective and our goal out of it, or do we have to just pretend that we're taking our goal out of it and like appeasing them by listening to them? Like, is this,
I don't think it's pretending. I think it's, first of all, it's acknowledging that you could be wrong.
okay.
I mean, that's, you have to
If
come at it.
if you're in an argument, you may stand to learn.
Yeah, you could learn something from
Yeah.
this conversation.
Somehow,
That
okay.
that you didn't walk into it with.
Okay.
So it's the curiosity and it is the not assuming. So if you walk into it deciding you have all the information, that's gonna be a bad conversation.
Yeah.
Cause you're not listening and you're there you're there to lecture them. And so if that's how you're gonna approach that, that's not a conversation. So being willing to hear things. So I'm not saying that you don't hold on to your own values and your own opinions, but you can't, just like they're not gonna be able to shove theirs down your throat, you're not gonna take that either. And the same thing with the emotion. So back to the anger, that you're not gonna be able to push happiness on them. Don't let them give you what they're selling.
Jasmine?
Yeah, and I like that you said you can't fake it. So there's this like shift of how I think about it, because it can feel like you're taking this back seat when you're listening. You're like, I have my objective, like I really want, and that energy is kind of hard to sit still on, right? So manipulation has gotten just a bad rep because we manipulate clay, right? So just think about the conversation. If this is the mental trick for some clients, I tell them, like, if you want to get what you want, like I said, you can't force it on them. So if you're gonna get what you want, just kind of like a kid, it's like, well, you have to be patient and wait for it, then you can. So you have to wait your turn in the conversation and wait patiently for it. But then while you're waiting, kind of another flip of, I'm not waiting to call them out. Of like all the wrongdoing, even the stuff in the news, everything. We want to call them out for the crappiness. You know, I'm trying to use PC language here for all the bad things that's happening. But what if we could shift it to just, we want to bring them forward. We want to call them forward into a conversation. I don't want to wait my turn and say this is all the negative things you need to think my way. I want to be curious, right? We call them forward and say, tell me more about that. Like, let's actually come together and let me learn about what you're talking about. Now their defenses are down. They're not on guard, because when you say, tell me more, do you know someone says, I can't wait to, really, tell me what the, oh, sure, I can't wait to tell you my side. That's why I started screaming at you. Everyone does what I talk about. But if you hold that objective in your head, it's like, I'm not trying to call them out, I just want to bring them forward and hopefully we can get somewhere. Because isn't that the whole point? Like, all of us being here, we want to move this thing that's happening in front of us, like, forward to a better place. Because where it is now, none of us like it, or we wouldn't even be sitting in this room right now, right? So if we remember, let's try to move it forward. But because if we stay doing that, we're gonna stay stuck, and that's kind of what feeds the beast.
Well, I think how you're saying it, you're not being defensive about it. You're not trying to like disavow their anger.
Yeah.
You're kind of letting them live it out or finish it. And
Let them be angry.
maybe it de-escalates because
And I would say it is really important that we have conversations with people that we don't agree with, because I think it's really dangerous to not do that. For everyone that agrees to stick with the people that they agree with and not have conversations with people that disagree with them, that gets us to a really scary, bad place. It feels safe, but at some point that is not safe for everybody, because then you have all the people that agree with each other on one side and all the people that agree with each other on another side, or factions or whatever. You need to be able to have those conversations. It's not healthy for anybody for us to not figure out how to do that. So the fact that we're here talking about this and figure out how to manage all of those emotions, it's good. So try those in small doses and breathe and employ some of those strategies, because it's a good muscle to build.
and if like maybe right now, given the times, maybe we do kind of stick with our safe
Well, and we're talking about, you know, you're bringing out like really big, hard things, but I deal with things at work that are much smaller. Like, you know, I've had he microwaves his fish every day in the office, and it smells terrible. And she wears too much perfume, and I can't stand how loud he is on the phone. And those are real life things that people deal with all the time, and you have to figure out how to handle those. And if those people are not communicating with each other, if they're not listening to each other, that's an everyday like issue. Or I have an employee who won't do this, and this is part of their job, and I need to figure out how to make that work. And you know, those are our everyday dealings. You know, we're on the road and we've got someone who cut us off. That's anger that we have to figure out how to process daily. That I think we need to understand how are we handling that, because the guy that cut us off does not care. He probably doesn't even know that he did it. And how we handle that is how the rest of our day goes. So are we gonna take that fish, and are we gonna just like hold on to that fish?
No.
Are we gonna try and like catch up to him and throw it at him, or what are we gonna do with that?
It's your
So
person's question, not
that's all I'm saying. Yeah, and don't microwave fish.
Yeah,
I'll
God,
just-
sakes,
that
don't microwave.
that situation was like a decade ago, and I'll never forget those
Let's
comments.
all just agree. Not
that's
good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dream about fish.
Right.
I have had a revenge dream. I've actually had 2 revenge dreams that involve fish, so this is very interesting for me. I'm gonna have to talk to both of you about this later. Yes. Yes.
I love the HR perspective on the panel too, because I'm like baby HR, right? Just because we don't have an HR department, obviously, as a small business, but I play HR all the time.
Yeah.
And the word manipulation is really interesting too. And I sometimes find myself, you know, feeling uncomfortable with the idea that I have to manipulate somebody's perspectives to get the common goal, to get to the common goal.
And that's
But
what
it's really,
It's not a bad
it's
word.
really like intriguing and super fun. It is, it's super
Because you
fun.
think about it like our children manipulate
Yeah,
us.
yeah, totally.
They're trying to get what they want, but we do the same thing to them.
We do,
You're shaping
yeah.
them.
I think
Just
that's
like you
super
said with
fun
play,
too.
you're
Yeah.
shaping a behavior, and you do that with everything.
Yeah.
I had to manipulate to open this bottle.
Right.
Mhm.
Like everything is manipulated.
But it's how you talk to people. You say
Yes.
please and thank you. That's manipulative.
Mhm.
It is.
So you just have to frame that you are looking for a particular outcome, and you're trying to figure out what the right way is
You
to
gotta
do
be
that, where
patient.
you're gonna hit the right value with that person, or you figure out what the right way is to ask a question, or
I know, and every human being, HR, needs different prodding set of circumstances to get the results that you're, like, you can't lay a blanket over the top of every, human being.
And I bet you your Uncle Rick is really good at figuring out how to manipulate people in the most positive way, because he listens.
Yeah.
And then he can employ, like, he knows what makes you tick, so
Yeah.
he's gonna know how to ask you to do something,
For
or
sure.
how to motivate you to get to do the thing that he needs.
Yeah.
So it's listening too.
Yeah, it is.
Cause it's kind of disarming, cause listening to someone is kind of just like, let's put all our weapons down and just kinda. Does anybody have questions for this is, like, we're getting to it. Does anybody have questions? Is this something that, like, directly applies to you, or that you've been wondering, or?
I'd say like the smaller things, like Jayme was breaking down, that seems easy, and it's easy to be like, what do we have in common? We can start from there. I think there's that saying, like, we can agree to disagree, but not if it's about human rights. I think that is like where I have so much anger right now, because you don't wanna walk around angry, you don't wanna be angry at your neighbor or whatever, but you look on Facebook and they're posting like really idiotic things, and you're just like, it makes me angry, and I don't wanna be angry about it. I don't care, like, at the end of the day, this guy is another human being, and again, he's probably carrying around his own trauma or whatever, but he's posting these idiotic and asinine things, and it's like, it's so infuriating.
I cleaned up my Facebook. It just
swipe them, and then I go on another app and get angry.
Yeah, Sue?
I kind of think that, Laura, what you're talking about is, and saying, like, you don't need to see, like, if a news program, let's say, like, I stopped watching mainstream news literally 30 years ago because I couldn't go to bed at night, it would all stay in my head. And so that was, unconscious at the time, but, it's really taught me, if there's something really negative that you don't have to cross paths with, just don't. And you're gonna still make all the good impacts in life that you're here to do, because I get those kind of things too, like somebody, I'm probably maybe sometimes too tuned in